what's up guys? Today I wanted to just sit down and do a chatty get ready with me. I have the new Alter Ego Sundown palette, which is a dupe for Natasha Denona's My Dream palette. So I'm going to put these two to the test side by side. And I also just wanted to chat about a topic that a lot of you have been asking me about, and that is, am I leaving YouTube? And the reason for that is because there have been a ton of other pretty big content creators coming out and saying that YouTube is either suppressing their channels or just that the views are not what they used to be. And so I want to talk about that. I definitely have some thoughts on why that's happening and also how my channel fits into that as well. So if that sounds good, hang tight. Right after my little Vlogmas intro, we'll get right into it. All right, so before we get ready, let me just quickly show you this palette up close. I'll show you some swatches. This is the new Sundown palette from Alter Ego. It has this beautiful, gorgeous sunset on the front cover. I always love their cover art. I think they do such a phenomenal job. Inside you have 15 shades. There are 2 cream shades and the rest are powder. You have a nice mix of both shimmer shades, matte shades. Some of the shimmers are more metallic. You have a couple satins in here, and then you also have a couple of glitters. So there's a nice range of the different finishes going on. You also have a nice mix of warm tones and cool tones, although I would say the majority of the shades in here are warm. So if we take a look at it next to Natasha Denona's My Dream palette, I think you can see these are incredibly similar to one another. The shades are arranged in a different order, but you can see the similarities between them for sure. And what I did with the swatches is I just separated them out into the shimmer shades and then the matte shades. So here we're looking at the shimmer shades first. You have Alter Ego on top, Natasha Denona on the bottom. And I did think that some of the shimmers in Natasha Denona felt a little bit creamier. They were slightly more pigmented, but I think you could easily build up the Alter Ego shadows to match. Also, I didn't think that every single color was a perfect dupe. There are some variations between the palettes, but overall, they look really, really similar. Then we have the matte shades, and I think these were a lot closer in terms of the color. They were pretty much exactly spot on, but again, I noticed that the Natasha Denona matte shades felt a little more velvety. They were a little bit more pigmented in one swipe. I did have to build up the Alter Ego shadows a little bit, but I was able to get them to look exactly the same. So I don't think that's a deal breaker by any means. And in fact, I've said this multiple times, but I actually prefer the Alter Ego matte shades to the Natasha Denona. And just because I feel like they're easier to blend. The Natasha Denona are super pigmented and they have that really rich feel, and they just tend to grab to my skin a little bit more and are just harder to blend out. So I prefer the blendability of the Alter Ego, just my personal preference, of course. But on the flip side of that, I do think I prefer Natasha Denona shimmers a little bit more than Alter Ego. I just think these have a little more pop, especially her wet look shimmers. These are good, but these are kind of on another level. So it just depends. I find that if I use a glitter primer underneath the Alter Ego, I can get them to pop just as much and make them look the same. So I'm just going to quickly prep my eyes with the MAC Paint Pot and Painterly, and then we will get started. All right, so starting on the Alter Ego side, I'm going to pick up the shade Edge, which is this kind of taupey brown right here, and I'm going to be using the BK Beauty 201 brush. So just to kind of clear the air, I am not leaving YouTube. YouTube. I'll just say that right now. I'm not going to keep anyone in suspense. There's no reason for me to quit at the moment. I honestly love doing it so much. I just couldn't imagine not doing this. And my channel is doing okay right now. I mean, it's not totally blowing up, but at the same time, it's slow and steady growth. And whenever I talk to my husband about this, whenever I see other content creators that are my size getting like all of these tons of views and they seem like they're growing so fast, he'll always tell me, just, you don't want that. If it's slow and steady growth, that is basically what you want. And sometimes I do have videos that do terribly in terms of views, but another thing that he's kind of taught me is to look at the overall picture. Has my channel been growing? Don't look at like individual videos and how they're doing, but just the overall trajectory, you know, so all of those things make me feel like things are going okay, but they weren't always. Last year around this time, I did experience a major slump and it felt like my channel was kind of starting to die. And every time I uploaded a video, YouTube was telling me viewers are less interested in this topic and this is like one of my worst performing videos, and it seemed like every time it kept telling me that, and it was so frustrating. In the Natasha Denona palette, I'm just going to use the shade Nurture right here. Yeah, it was frustrating and it was scary because it felt like the algorithm was holding me back. It felt like it was against me. And that's what I've heard a lot of other people say. And on top of that, a lot of you guys were saying that you weren't seeing my videos pop up, that they weren't on the homepage. And that's all due to the algorithm. If the algorithm thinks that your video is worth watching, they'll put it on the homepage. But if it doesn't, then it's still going to be visible on my page or in your actual subscription feed, but it's not going to be listed on the homepage when you first open the app. You have to kind of go looking for it. So basically that's what was happening. Now, in order for the YouTube algorithm to really want to promote one of your videos, it has to kind of have like this immediate virality, right? YouTube wants to keep people watching as long as possible and as much as possible. So if it's a video that maybe has a slow start, that a lot of people aren't clicking on immediately as soon as you publish it, YouTube thinks that it's not really worth watching, and that's when they kind of bury it. So I really had to change my approach. Once I kind of did some digging and looked into why this is happening, I had to change the way that I did things, and that seemed to help, and I started experiencing growth again. Especially this summer, I noticed that my views were really taking off and doing well. But I can absolutely see how it can be so scary and so frustrating for a lot of people here on this platform because YouTube is their livelihood. It's replaced their full-time job, and when you're relying on it as your source of income, I can imagine just how nerve-wracking it is always wanting to make sure that your videos do well. I'm just gonna pick up this shade Eve, which is this darker gray down here. I think for me, it's kind of a different story because I didn't have a job when I started YouTube. I was a stay-at-home mom, and I did this more for fun. So for me, it's easy for me to say because I had all the time in the world to just kind of research and figure out, you know, what am I doing wrong, kind of play around with things. But you know, other people don't have that luxury. They are relying on YouTube for a paycheck, and when the videos aren't performing, it can be even scarier to take a risk and try to do a different type of content because what if that fails even more? You know what I mean? So my heart definitely goes out to them. I've been chatting with a couple of people behind the scenes, like other YouTubers, and we all kind of talk and, you know, just share our experiences. And I think we're all at a little bit of a loss because YouTube has really just changed so much. It's not the same as it once was. And I know that people love to blame the algorithm. I'm just going to pick up this shade Aspiration in the Natasha Denona palette. I've heard some creators say that the YouTube algorithm is against like the over 40 crowd. I don't find that to be the case at all because I've talked to younger YouTubers in their 20s that are experiencing the same thing. I don't think it's about age at all. I think it's about the type of content that people are watching these days. And some people also will say it's about TikTok, that everybody's going over there to watch beauty content. And I also don't think that that's true either because most of the people here on YouTube that comment on my videos, they'll often say they don't even have TikTok. They've never been on it before. So I think that they are two very different audiences. And I don't think that that has a lot to do with it. Personally, I think that the people who are watching TikTok are younger and they maybe haven't been in the makeup game for as long as people who have been watching YouTube. And so things like basic get ready with me videos or favorites videos and things like that, they're doing well over there because they haven't been watching or consuming beauty content as long as we all have over here. So I think with YouTube, at least, and this is just coming from purely a YouTube watcher, like, because I watch a lot of YouTube as well. I think that a lot of us who've been watching makeup content for a really long time have just gotten a little bit bored with it. And that was something I think for me was a little bit hard to swallow when I had that realization, like, what do I like watching on YouTube? I realized that I tend to skip a lot of makeup content these days, unless there's maybe a product in the thumbnail that I'm interested in and I really want to see like that person's take on it, then I'll click on the video. But I'm just putting glitter glue on my lid, by the way. There are a lot of things that I just find myself skipping over. And you probably have your own list of videos that you just tend to skip as well, things that you just don't find as interesting as you used to. And this doesn't apply to just beauty content either. I think with anything you watch, if you watch the same thing over and over again, eventually you start seeking out different stuff or things that are maybe adjacent to that same topic, but just presented in a different way. By the way, I don't know if I mentioned, I'm applying the shade Prism, which is this beautiful duochrome. I'm just putting that kind of toward the outer corner of my eye and going toward the center. And then I'm going to pick up the shade Afterglow and put this one in the inner corner and blend it back towards that other one. But yeah, I've had to just start thinking a little bit deeper about my content, spending more time coming up with video ideas, and it has been very hit or miss. Some of these new video ideas that I think are really going to take off and everybody's going to love, they end up falling flat and they get terrible views, and then other times I'll just post some like random thing and it takes off and does really well. So that can make things even more confusing because you really don't know what people are looking for. By the way, I'm going to pick up the same shades in this palette. I have Vision and Thrill right here. So I'm going to start with Vision. This is so pretty. And another thing that I really never thought about before, but I noticed this when I was looking back at my analytics for my videos, is that probably half of the views that I get are from people who are not even subscribed to my channel. And that's not just recent, but it's going back a long time. If one of my videos gets 20,000 views, let's say, 10,000 could be you guys, my subscribers, and then the other 10,000 are from somebody who's never been to my channel before. So when the YouTube algorithm promotes your video, they're not only promoting it to people who watch you, they're promoting it to everyone. And really the secret, I think, to getting the most views is to make something that's not only appealing to your audience, but to everyone. And that's really, really difficult. And it's definitely something that I've struggled with because I get a lot of requests for videos. And like in my heart, I know like if I do that, it's not going to do well, right? Because it's something that my core audience wants to see, but it doesn't really have broad appeal to everyone else. Obviously, I want to make videos that you all like, but at the same time, if enough of my videos don't do well, then YouTube starts to think my channel's not relevant. It's a delicate balance for sure. And one of the things that I've had to do is to make my titles and thumbnails more appealing, both visually and just like the words that I'm using have to be a little bit more sensational. I've seen some Reddit threads about me the past 6 months or so. I'm just going to use the Hourglass tubing mascara. But several people were complaining that I'm using clickbait now. And I don't necessarily agree with that because to me, clickbait is when a title or thumbnail says one thing and then you go to watch the video and it's something completely different. It's basically like a bait and switch, and I don't think that I ever do that. I just am using a little bit more forceful language just to make it a little bit more appealing to someone who is casually scrolling on YouTube and they come across this and they're like, whoa, what's this about? And then they click on it. So that's one thing I've had to do to kind of keep my channel growing and keep it going in the right direction. I think a lot of it is just trying to navigate the the changes that YouTube is bringing us. It's constantly changing, and not just YouTube itself, but the audience. Everybody who's watching, they're going to grow and change. And I think as content creators, we have to grow and change with them, or you risk not as many people seeing your content. And like I said, it's very scary. It's one of those things that you never really know if you're doing the right thing. I feel like that constantly. I'm always second guessing choices that I make for thumbnails, titles, just video topics in general. And I'm constantly stressing over it. Like, is this going to do well or is it not? And like I said earlier in the video, I'm not relying on YouTube as a source of income. So I can't even imagine the pressure that some of these other creators are feeling when it comes to making sure that their channels continue to grow. All right, so just quickly, here's the finished eye look. We have the Alter Ego on this side, Natasha Denona over here. I feel like they look really similar. I'm not noticing a lot of difference. The Natasha Denona side might be slightly more sparkly, and I think that that's due to this shade Thrill right here. This is one of her wet look shadows, and I do think that the Alter Ego one is sparkly, but maybe like not quite as much. It's pretty close, but you guys will have to let me know how it translates on camera. I mean, just looking in the mirror, they look pretty similar. So next, I'm just gonna apply foundation. This is the CoverGirl Simply Ageless Pressed Powder in the shade Classic Ivory. I use this as a powder foundation. I think it has great coverage, especially if you use it with the sponge. So all of this to say, I'm not quitting YouTube. I definitely am gonna stick around. I love doing this, but of course at the same time, I do wanna see my channel succeed. I put so much work and time into it, and I wanna make sure that I'm giving you guys the best content that I can possibly make. I don't just want to phone it in. I want to always try to come up with new and interesting topics, whether they work or not, I guess remains to be seen, but it does make me happy and just makes me feel proud when videos do really well and they resonate with all of you. I think it makes all of the hard work that I put in seem worth it. For blush, I'm going to be using the Anastasia Beverly Hills blush stick in the shade Latte. So this was in my Shop My Stash advent calendar that my son made for me. He went through my collection, picked out 24 random products and put them all in little bags. And this is what I ended up pulling out today. And I'm so happy because I love this blush, but I feel like I don't use it as often as I should. So I'm just gonna dab a little bit of this on. I absolutely love this color. It's the perfect pinky nude shade. I feel like it goes with everything. And I'm applying it with my BK Beauty 107 brush, which is my favorite blush brush. So I would be really curious to see what you guys are enjoying watching on YouTube these days, and if your viewing habits have changed over time, because I know, like I said earlier in the video, mine definitely have from what they were before. It used to be any beauty video I would click on. I was just so obsessed with makeup, and it might sound strange because that's what I'm actually doing as a literal job right now, but I don't know. I just sometimes get bored with seeing new products. I feel like I don't want to be sold to as much. And I think that's one reason why I'm not over on TikTok very often, because it seems like all they're doing over there is just selling, selling, selling. But then at the same time, I don't find myself interested in Shop My Stash content either. I tried to do that over the summer and I know it was a huge flop. I just really didn't put as much effort into it as I should have. I did like a no buy July and I did a couple of videos, but I noticed right away that they were getting like half the views that I normally do, and it wasn't resonating as much with people. So then that was discouraging for me, and it just made me kind of not want to do it. And then I regretted that whole idea in the first place. So like I said, sometimes I come up with new ideas. They don't always pan out. I think just taking the plunge and trying those new ideas is what gives me the feedback as to what the majority wants to watch and what they don't. By the way, this is the ColourPop lip liner in Me Again. I have been loving these ColourPop lip liners that I got in the holiday kits. I use them so often. I just put this one on top of the Neutrogena lip oil to make kind of a creamy lipstick, and the color is so, so pretty. But for example, I know that drugstore content does really well on my channel. It always has, and that's something that I think has always continued to be. But one thing that did really well for me before in the past was dupes, and over the past year or so, I've noticed that my dupe videos were getting way less views than usual. So I had to kind of adjust and stop doing those as often. Same thing with my haul videos. I know so many of you love those and I've tried to keep them going, but instead of every week, I started doing them a little more sporadically because again, those also just did not get the views that they once did. So I think one of the hardest things for me with content creation has always been trying to balance what I love to do versus what people want to watch. And there are some videos that I just find so fun and so satisfying to film, but if people aren't watching them, if they're not getting enough views, then I find that I'm just not able to do them as often as I want to. But at the same time, I feel like I'm letting down the people who really enjoy that content and want to see it. And I've had to try to balance things and put out those videos anyway, even though I know they're not going to get a lot of views, but it's something that I've always done. And I know that people subscribed to my channel because of videos like that. So then it just seems kind of horrible, like a bait and switch for me to just stop doing them altogether. So these are just things that are always going on in my head, but I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear your thoughts on YouTube in general. Like I said, what are you guys watching? What are you not watching? Let me know in the comments. Let's chat about it. And as far as the Alter Ego Sundown palette goes, I think it really held its own, maybe just slightly less impactful when it comes to the shimmer or the glitter shades, but otherwise I love their formula and I love that they give you the look for less. So if you're interested in this, I do have a coupon code with Alter Ego. It's Gen10. And as always, thank you so much for hanging out with me today and for listening to me ramble about YouTube. I always appreciate your support as always. And if you'd like to check out another video, if you haven't seen my latest Vlogmas playlist, I'll just put some right over there that you could check out next. Thank you guys so much. I hope you have a great rest of your day and I'll see you all in my next one. Take care, guys. Bye.